To paraphrase Snoop Dogg, with so much drama in the MAP, it's kind of hard being Tommy, GOLOB. But somehow, some way, keep coming up with funky fun stuff like every single day. The metaphysical autology principle, the MAP, comes up with stuff every single day. It is the closed descriptive manifold of reality that allows for anything within reality to be a definitive attribute for itself. And that means that reality is self-contained, as described in the reality principles, that reality consists of all and only that which is real. And that means that reality is self-composed, and all functions and operations relevant to reality in any sense are basically have to be functions and operations of reality itself. So reality can't be created by anything external to itself. That's akin to saying non-reality, something non-existent created reality. If it created reality, it's real. Same thing with it has to be self-sustaining. Reality has to be self-sustaining, self-explanatory. Everything within reality, no essential predicate is omitted. Everything in reality has to explain itself by virtue of its self-containment. So reality defines itself through these networks of relationships wherein everything is defined according to each other. And this is a fundamental form of description known as self-description, and that is what the metaphysical autology principle is all about. It's autology, which means self-description. And that is how reality relates to itself at the metaphysical level, at the level beyond physics, at the level of the very ground and source of being. Reality is self-descriptive. It is and self-definitive. It is defined in terms of itself and all and only itself. It is self-contained. It is a closed descriptive manifold that omits nothing within reality. So this is basically an explication of the principle that reality contains all and only that which is real. Not only contains all and only that which is real, but everything in reality is explained in terms of all and only that which is real. So the MAP is a theoretical refinement of the reality principle, this basic principle which says that nothing outside of reality can affect reality in any way whatsoever, which further goes to explicate like how reality is basically a closed system because non-reality has no relevance to it. So everything that is real is included within reality. So the MAP affects closure on these levels by basically defining reality in terms of these intrinsic self-definitions and self-descriptive features that allow reality to call on itself, to call on its own content for its structure. So that means that reality's structure and evolution are self-generative and self-determined by the reality system itself. There's nothing outside of reality that can account for its for any such thing. And so its structure and evolution are self-directed. They are the MAP requires us basically to think of reality as its own medium, as its contents are the same as its objective relational medium. And that means that reality is self-contained, not only in the sense that it contains itself, but insofar as its contents also serve as basically containers for themselves, and for everything else within reality, is that everything is mutually interpenetrating, and everything within reality is part of that network that has to have that self-containment aspect. So everything within reality contains reality and all and only reality. So reality basically knows what it is. It is reality, and it is not reality. And not reality means reality. So reality is reinforcing its own definition through the distinction between reality and non-reality. So that means that anything that we consider about reality has to be something intrinsic, even an external scale. If someone were to ask, how big is reality? That's a non sequitur. It doesn't even make sense within the context of reality theory, because any absolute size or length of time that we can say reality is is only defined on space and time, which are a subset of reality. Time is internal to reality. Time is defined by reality. Reality is not defined by time. All of these things emerge at a more at a less fundamental level than reality itself. And so that means that since reality analytically is self-contained, the it comprises a self-descriptive manifold that refers only to itself, and it serves as its own intrinsic medium through which it can structure itself and evolve. So anything external to reality is basically irrelevant to our reality theory. It's just not interesting and it doesn't exist. It's simply not there. So so there has to, if we were to posit a scale, we say like reality is this amount of trillions of years old or billions or whatever, that there's a more general sense in which reality has no absolute size or duration, but there's a deeper level of reality at which that scale is intrinsic to that background, and reality is basically not there's no way to say like reality brought itself into existence. Just reality, there have always been real things. It's not a way to think about this. And Langen describes the MAP as a general principle of relativity, not to be confused with Einstein's general principle of relativity. But it basically says that anything that is relative is defined by the absolute, which is coupled at all scales to various strata of reality, but at the absolute level is intrinsically self-contained, and that's the reality. And that's the reality of reality theory. That's what we're talking about, is this self-contained, self-descriptive language that omits no essential predicate, and has no gaps in structure or its self-generative evolutions. That the reality is everything inside reality is inside reality, and everything outside reality is outside reality. That's the simplest way to understand the metaphysical autology principle. Um, and so the and so any question like why and how does reality exist, or why does this reality exist instead of some other reality, address the ontological, the study of the level of being, or the teleological level, the level of purpose of the structure of reality. And because these levels of structure are meaningful logically, they must have answers, even if those answers are determined, as some of those are, by the closure criterion itself. So at the ontological level, reality exists because it is a descriptor that applies the existence predicate to itself. So it literally says, you exist now. Oh wait, I'm that which exists because there's nothing outside of me. I exist. It is a operator that describes itself as existing and brings itself into existence. At the teleological level, the purpose of reality is also self is also based on the MAP. Is that it's like, what is my purpose of existing? It's to express more of myself. It's to do more of this. It's self-expression, self-identification. So that means that both of those are basically determined and justified in terms of both how reality exists, and why reality exists, or why reality exists instead of some other reality. Those are justified from within the metaphysical autology principle itself. It's like, let's make more of ourselves. Let's be fruitful and multiply, but have this multiplexing aspect, and have this natural selection wherein there is a self-replication, self-selection that is occurring everywhere for the further expression of that closed reality. So basically, reality is a closed descriptive manifold that is defined using language and mind. So within that closed structure, we have to think about how does reality relate to itself. The way it does this is through all of the principles that we've talked about. It's through the relational medium between theory and universe, as well as the relational medium between mind and reality. And then it is self-contained, it is linguistic, and it is syndiphonic. So that means that there's nothing outside of it that can define it. It is defined intrinsically using language. And finally, it is basically, even though it has this synetic level whereby reality is one entity, it also has this diffeonic level whereby all of the diverse manifestations of the world are included within that self-contained structure of reality. So the MAP is kind of like the glue that like brings all of these different principles together. And we'll discuss a little bit about this idea of like the map equals the terrain at the level of reality theory. Is that the map is basically reality creating a self model of itself that serves as its intrinsic medium as an abstract structure. And that means that the map, the reality's intrinsic self model, is equivalent to reality's geometric and logical expression. There's no difference between the way reality relates to itself and the way reality extends itself. So that means that the map is the terrain, contrary to the popular aphorism that the map is not the terrain. Actually, at the level of reality, the map is the terrain. So I just want to read this whole paragraph because this is like one of my favorite lines in the CTMU material. It says, now we know that the closed single predicate definition of the reality principle is actually a closed descriptive manifold of linked definitions in principle containing the means of its own composition, attribution, recognition, processing, and interpretation. But this is still somewhat automatonic. Yeah, I got that right. Like akin to an automata, like something that doesn't have any structure, right? What about mind? Since it is through our minds that we understand anything at all, understanding remains incomplete until we understand more about the relationship between mind and reality. So, having equipped ourselves with a map, we now attend to the correspondence between the map, the MAP, and the terrain and reality itself. So, how does reality's autology, how does the metaphysical autology, how does the self-description relate to reality? It does that through mind. And we've already discussed the mind equals reality principle, but I want to show this. It says, when it comes to mind, M equals R, when it comes to mind equals reality, it is hard to resist a little play on words. M equals R says that at the syntactic level of cognition and perception, the MAP is the terrain. So that means that reality's self-description through the universal mind is equivalent to the geometric self-expression of reality. Isn't that so beautiful? Is that like the way reality describes itself is its intrinsic medium. It is how it structures and evolves. And that means that that any content, that all content and structure of reality are defined by reality's self-description. So thank you to everyone. This was a very interesting and enlightening section. God bless. Take care.